welcome to FinextraTV's 2021 Predictions series. Today I'm delighted to be speaking with CEO of Digital Identity Net, Martin Wilson. Martin, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
So first, and perhaps for a little bit of context, 2020 of course upended a lot of what we know and practice in every aspect of life and business. And we're all clearly navigating the new ways of working and living quite well, I'd like to think. And so looking forward, what ways do you see digital identity helping to address some of the key challenges that society faces today?
Well, yes, I think if we think first of all specifically, because many people say there's been many changes, but what specifically has changed? And there are so many of them. Often people move to retail straight away and say, well, you know, we've moved away from the high street into online shopping, and there's been some 75% shift in that direction over the last 12 months. But it's more than just that. Any communication that you have with any organization where it's important that they know who you are has had to change in this environment. So that could include social security, it could include financial services, healthcare. And so when you look forward in terms of the importance of digital identity, it is as much to do with social inclusion and enabling people to interact just normally in their everyday lives, as it is in terms of connecting businesses to consumers, protecting consumers from online fraud, identity theft, but also there's a great opportunity here, and particularly for banks. This is an opportunity for banks to reconnect with their customers because they are already the custodians of the customer's personal identity. And the fact that banks are still very much trusted by their customers to be the custodians of identity, there's a big future for them going forward.
That's really wonderful to hear. It's definitely encouraging to hear how valuable digital identity solutions can be for financial inclusion, social inclusion. Now, moving on, if you could expand a little bit more on how digital identity can help banks specifically. Does the emergence of digital identity opportunities not present the potential of disintermediation by both big tech and fintech?
Well, yes, it does, except for a couple of things which have certainly started to emerge over the course of the last nine months or so. And that is a growing awareness of the importance to the individual of protecting and cherishing their personal identity, their identity data, and an awareness of how their identity data in the past has been given away quite freely. I'm willing to bet that you and I have some over 200 digital identities out there in the ether, and most of them we won't even remember passing them on. So that awareness of how important it is to look after and cherish your own digital identity, an awareness of big tech and how that data has been used and exploited for other things beyond your consent has grown over this time. So a search in the market for a different way of enabling you to interact digitally without having to pass out freely your digital identity and actually have control yourself. That's a really important thing. The other important thing is that with the emergence of open banking and the engagement that we're seeing with the banks who recognize that they have an important role to play, there is an opportunity in the market to introduce quite a simple digital identity system, easy to implement, very quick to implement, very cheap to implement, and easy to use both by corporate organizations and by the individual.
No, thank you. And I mean, with 200 potential digital identities out there, trust would definitely play a big factor in that that context. So obviously, digital identity as a concept can be approached in countless ways. How do you see digital identity solutions developing in practice for this year and beyond?
So I would reflect, first of all, on where we were this time last year in the discussions around the marketplace on digital identity. And there were many organizations who were still at that time thinking they could go it alone somehow. But over this past year, I've seen a very clear move to recognizing that there needs to be a whole of market solution. There needs to be a trust framework and a solution that enables everybody to talk to everybody else, so that everybody has enough confidence in the system and trust in the system to enable digital identities to be shared without them being exploited. So I'll come back to something I already said. The simplicity of a solution that can leverage open banking and leverage the trust that the banks have as custodians of personal information. That's an important aspect of any solution going forward. And what we're trying to do in Digital Identity Net, and making some good progress in that regard, is that we aim to be the first privately funded utility to enable corporates, individuals, and banks to connect to each other to provide an assured digital identity solution for the UK. And the application, as I mentioned, can be in many ways, in terms of protecting payments, in terms of protecting your own identity from identity theft and fraud. But the key aspects here, very simple to implement because it leverages open banking, very secure because no data is held outside of the banks themselves, who are already custodians of your personal information. And the speed at which this can be implemented through the central infrastructure that's already been built and through open banking APIs, that gives us a real opportunity in the UK to have a good and secure and trusted digital identity solution going forward.
Oh, definitely. I can only imagine just how important building that confidence must be in, increasing uptake of these digital identity solutions. And so finally, this ties in. What are your ambitions? What does 2021 have in store for Digital Identity Net?
Digital Identity Net, through its service OneID, is looking to be the first privately funded utility in the provision of digital identity services. And we are starting pilot with a number of banks over the next few months and bringing on corporates to be part of that pilot. So extending the participation model in the pilot is the first objective for this year, for the first half of this year. And beyond that, of course, we'd look to extend the model and start to bring on more and more participants so that the model can be a whole of market solution for the UK. And in addition to that, I think it's incumbent on us through the OneID service and through our partnerships with banks and corporates to raise the awareness of the importance of protecting your own personal identity and how a digital identity service like OneID can actually provide a good social benefits and bring social inclusion in terms of access to financial services, healthcare, social security, and protecting the vulnerable. So lots to do over the next 12 months.
Fantastic. It sounds like you have a very, very busy year ahead. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your insight with us today, Martin. We really appreciate it. And we're very much looking forward to hearing more news from Digital Identity Net during 2021.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.